Okay, so the topic of this workshop is NA, a worldwide fellowship. And I'd like to introduce our speaker. I didn't get a chance to kind of talk to him so I could give you some fun facts about our speaker, but I do know this. He came from Hollywood, Florida, which is where my sponsor came from before she moved to St. George, which is, thank you, Hollywood, Florida, for keeping my sponsor clean for me. And then I also know that my sponsee sister is from that same area, and she's still clean. So there must be recovery in Hollywood, Florida. And I know that this person comes to our convention often, and I've seen him many places. I just haven't got the opportunity to sit down and get to know him. But I'm very excited to introduce CJ from Hollywood.
Good morning, man. I'm an addict. My name's CJ. And I'm here with God's grace and mercy and the Fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. And, you know, oh, man. I always get all nervous. You would think you wouldn't get nervous after being clean 29 plus years, you know, but I still... But I'm as nervous as the first time I had sex. but there wasn't 100 people around. I was by myself. Some can relate, I hear. But I really just want to thank, I think the St. George Committee deserves a round of applause for everything they've done over. Not just over what they did this year, but it's what they've done for the last 10 years, this convention. And it's truly one of my favorite because it's just like a nice, small, intimate convention. And it always seems I walk out of here knowing some people better, you know. And sometimes I get lost in them big conventions, you know. And that's what I really love about this. One thing I would like to say and devote this meeting is to my friend and sponsee, Dennis O. from Hollywood, Florida. He's in a battle right now, and he's been fighting cancer for 5 years, and this is his 4th bout. Me and Roseanne were talking to him earlier, and we got a little good news that he got put in the hospital on Thursday, but he got released today. So there's hope, you know? But I was confused on my topic. See, I thought I was only just supposed to talk on, and I was very confused. And I want to thank the members here. They said, no, we asked you to come. We want to hear the whole package of your story and intertwine that with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about how Narcotics Anonymous took a hopeless, helpless, cardboard box bum and has blessed him with being able to travel and go to 91 countries for Narcotics Anonymous. If anybody's new, please, Lost Dreams Awaken. And if travel is something that's in your path, you will travel. As long as you keep Narcotics Anonymous first, anything's possible. And I'm going to just tell you, I hate talking about my growing up, but I'll make it as fast as possible. I'll try to keep it under 2 minutes. you know, where most kids at the age of 4, I got epilepsy, and a lot of people don't know that, and no, I still have it. But when I was 4, I got epilepsy, and where most kids went to school, I spent my childhood in institutions and hospitals with wires hooked up to my head and just looking at the glass window saying, please, man, I wish I could just go out and play with the other kids, you know? And, you know, that wasn't in my childhood, you know? And then when I got out, you know, I'd have seizures all the time. And kids are cruel, and nobody wants to hang out with a freak child, you know? And I was like a freak child to people. They didn't know how to act, you know, because I go into seizures. And but I excelled in sports. I love sports. It became my world, you know. When I got to go to school, I played baseball. I broke a Major League Baseball player's record. His name is Jeff Torborg. If anyone, he's a Dodger. So if any LA people are here, you know. And what's up, Jerry? I didn't see you. And you know, Jeff was a good guy, you know. And you know, and then I was a leading scorer in basketball, and then I tried out for the basketball team, and 27 kids tried out for the team, 25 kids made it, 1 kid quit, and I was the only kid that was cut. Now, I was the leading scorer. How does the leading scorer get cut? And I didn't know how to deal with feelings and emotions at that time, you know, and I never got the exact nature. I never wanted to feel rejection again in my life. I started walking on the other side of the street with the hippies. It was the late 60s. I'm old. And I started, you know, they started, I don't know if you ever even heard about this stuff. I mean, some old school people might have, but we had Carbona and Texas glue, you know. They said, man, you make a lot of airplanes, don't you? Oh, yeah. How come you buy the glue? You never buy the planes. I got a lot of gifts from my good relatives, you know? And you know what? And you know what? When I started hanging with these people, for the first time, I was accepted. I had never been having epilepsy and being the freak. I was never accepted amongst the jocks and everything. But these hippies, they were like, hey, why don't you come hang with us tonight, man? We're gonna do a bong party. I was like, what's a bong party? Come on, we'll show you. And it just progressed. And I don't need to go into the whole story, you know what What I did though, when I want to say this though, I left school when I was 15 years old. I was in the 10th grade, and I never came back for 13 years. I hitchhiked around the United States for 13 years. And, you know, I've always had this free spirit, so to say. And I love traveling, and I've traveled with the Allman Brothers, rest in peace, Greg, and the Grateful Dead, Leonard Skinner, whoever was on tour at the time, man. It was just like, you know, sex, rug, and rock and roll, baby. You know? And, you know, and all of a sudden, one of my buddies, he was going into New York. I was in Jersey. I'm a Jersey boy originally. I'm not from Hollywood, Florida. I don't think anybody is. But we all love it. It's great weather. But he said, come on, man, we're going over to the Lower East Side, man. And, you know, I found this certain drug that took away everything, you know. And let me tell you what, it took away everything. It took away all my spirit. It took away everything I had physically, mentally, spiritually. It brought me to living in a 4x4 block radius. I was so blessed this past week. I was visiting my buddy Nam in New York City, and we go to this meeting, and the meeting's on 9th Street and in between Avenue C and D. And my abandonmenium was on 9th in between C and D. And as I walked down there, it starts around in between Avenue A and B, and tears of joy, tears of thanks to Narcotics Anonymous, tears of thanks of Jimmy K and all he did to help do the, what do you call it, your gardening, whatever, to get it right. So when I came in, all the predecessors that came before me that just made this place, Narcotics Anonymous, such a wonderful place to came when I slid in here, but I forgot where the fuck I was there on that story.
Walking down the avenue.
Oh, and just just going and thinking back to all the, how narcotics, God showed me Narcotics Anonymous. I always say, my higher power showed me Narcotics Anonymous and blessed me with this gift, and my gift to to my higher power is what I do here in Narcotics Anonymous. And I've tried to be a constant member of service and all, but as I walked down that street, it was just remembering those times in Tent City in the middle. It was all dirt in between 8th and 9th, and just how blessed, that we are, that we have such a gift program. And I never forget, it was 1987. I was in a shooting gallery, and I was talking to my friend. I said, man, I can't do this anymore. And he goes, dude, I know a good place for you to go. And I said, where? And he said, it's called Narcotics Anonymous. And I said, yeah. And so I found out where there was a meeting, and I didn't want to go. Like, I would go home and stay with my mother and just show her I'm okay all throughout those hitchhiking years and even my using years. I'd go back and just show her I'm okay. And I remember walking into that meeting. I was 129 pounds. I could windsurf on a Dorito. Now if I walked into a meeting, they'd probably think I'm like Count Cracula. But I was skinny, and I tell you what, there was a guy there named Jim P, and they call him Pops, and these guys were high-fiving each other, and they were like, God is good all the time, and I was just like, man, I don't think I can do this. And there was a guy, Normell, and he had no legs. And I left that meeting early, and I just started crying because I knew that I could never have that spirit, that gift, that spark of life that they had. But it was their smiles that brought me back to Narcotics Anonymous. And when I came back to Narcotics Anonymous, and I went to I call it my real first meeting, and I walked in there, and it was Union Burnett Junior High School, and I walked in there, and I raised my hand, and I said, I need help, and I need a temporary sponsor. And because I went to a treatment facility, I forgot that. Follow the bouncing ball if you can. So I went to rehab. My parents sent me, they had insurance, and I paid $20,000 to find out that Narcotics Anonymous was free. After I went for free already, but it's all good. And so I walked in there, and I don't believe in temporary sponsor, but that's my story, And I walked in, I said, I need help. And the meeting was probably about 25 to 30 people, and they all proceeded to get up, and they all gave me a hug. And they said, welcome, keep coming back. We need you. Each one said something different. Each one was a little encouragement. And you see, it's so important, because when we come in here, we have just a little tiny spark and it's up to experienced members to fan that flame of desire. And what happened is they fanned that little flame, and it's become a burning fire inside. And I thank those people. And every time, and I get caught up in it sometimes. I get talking to my cliques. I remember I wanted to go to a meeting out of the area. I wanted to just hear something fresh, different. And I went out of the area, and nobody hugged me when I walked in. They're all talking in their cliques outside. And I go inside. Everybody raises their hand. I raise my hand. They call on everybody they know. And I leave the meeting. I'm standing outside. Nobody hugs me. And I call. I say, Spons, man. These people don't know how to run a meeting down here. And he said, oh, what do they do now? And I said, Spons, I went there and nobody hugged me. Nobody welcomed me. Nothing. He said, good. And I said, what do you mean good? You know? And he says, no, I'm saying good because now you know how it feels when a newcomer walks in the door. You had enough recovery to call me, but that newcomer might not. This may be his only shot. And when we get caught up in our cliques and forget about that newcomer, addicts could die.
That's right.
And I try to remember that, you know. And so I came in, and after the meeting, they said, hey, CJ, we're going to the diner. And I said, I don't have any money. And they said, we didn't ask you if you had any money. We asked you to come to the diner, you know. And they bought me a cheeseburger deluxe, and after picking crust out of the garbage can, that was like a filet mignon. And I said, how can I ever repay you? And they said, when you're able to, do for someone else what was done for you. And I always say that was the most expensive fucking hamburger I ever had. But it got me to come back to my second meeting, and that's where the miracle happened, you know. And I came to the meeting, and I got there a little tiny bit late, and it was going on the meeting. Then they came to Clean Time Celebration, and they said, does anyone have such and such? And then they said, does anyone have multiples of years? And all of a sudden, this girl, Trish R., stood up for multiples of years. And I was like, Trish? I mean, that was the same girl that was in the same shooting gallery I was in the Lower East Side. And you know, when someone's gone, you just think, well, you know, they died, you know, when you don't see them. And there she was, beaming.
That's right.
She was on fire with Narcotics Anonymous. And it was such an attraction to me. And after the meeting, we got together, and she said, CJ, I'm going to pick you up every day for 2 weeks. I'm going to introduce you to everybody you need to know. I'm going to plug you and get you commitments, and you will be set. And after I do my 2 weeks, you're on your own. And I know some of you are saying, I thought it's the men with the men, women with the women. The book I read talks about it's the therapeutic value of one addict helping another. It's without parallel. And she did her job, and funny thing happened. I think I had maybe 22 years clean at the time about that, and I was going back to Jersey, and thanks to Facebook, people knew what I was doing, and so they said, would you like to come and do H&I, which I always loved to do, and I came there, and I did my H&I, and I got there, and all the people, you know, the people are in their seats already, and I walk up, and I sit there, and I look to the left, and there's Trish R. And I was able to thank her for what she did for me. And it said, when I get out, you know my number. Let me do for you what you did for me. And I gave back, and I took her to meetings and plugged her back in. It wasn't 2 weeks. She didn't need 2 weeks, you know. But it was an honor. You never know when you're going to be able to give the gift back to somebody, you know. I started on this path, you know. I got involved. We had a great thing. It was a very exciting time, the 80s, for recovery. I don't know if it was the Rockefeller Law, the World Convention that happened in New York, but recovery was on fire. And we had this place called St. Mark's, or the Howe Club, and it was a place where people would gather and come to. And it was, on a given weekend, there could be 1,000 to 2,000 people on a given weekend that intertwined in and out of there. You know, we'd meet up, go to dinner, whatever. And it was really exciting, you know, and I loved doing trips. Like, people would need support. We'd go down to Philadelphia, we'd go to Baltimore, we'd drive, we'd do road trips. There'd be, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12 of us, and it was a very exciting time, you know, and we did that. And, you know, I was so blessed, and you know, and then we started a step work. And what I'm going to do is, because I'm bouncing here, what I'd like to do is I'm just going to talk a few key things that happened in my recovery, and it'll show you how I incorporated the steps into them. I'm visiting my friend who became my sponsor for almost 20 years, and his name is Ronnie G, and he lives in San Diego, and he's probably my biggest inspiration why I'm the man I am today, and I give him most all credit amongst God, you know, I mean with God. And I'm sitting out there with Ronnie, and Ronnie, if you know Ronnie's house, he has a garage, and he does his little workout in his garage, and I'm sitting on the steps facing him, and we're talking, and I'm huffing away. And at the time, I smoked 4 packs of Camel non-filters a day, and these 3 fingers stuck together, you know, like a brownish, goldish. So anyhow, so he does his 45-minute workout, and he comes sit down next to me, and he's toweling off, and all sweaty and everything. He goes, "Damn, CJ," he goes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cigarette butts in 45 minutes. He said, "Damn, you ever think about giving them things up?" I said, "Dude, I think about a lot of things, but that ain't one of them." You know, we get the monkey off our back, but the circus is still in town. You know. So he says, "No, CJ, you probably have the same fear about giving up the cigarettes as you did about giving up the drugs, and you had a total distorted perception of the truth." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "CJ, you thought there was no life after drugs, and it was only after you gave up drugs you began to live." He said, "You need to have faith and trust in this love and power that come into your life and remove the obsession for you to use, can come into your life and remove the obsession for you to stop smoking." And he said, I'll put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "I'll say a prayer for you." And I turned the corner and lit another cigarette. But when I woke up the next day, I just remember the date. I know it's either 27 or 20, about 26 or 27 years. I don't, but it was December 19th. And I woke up, and I had this little voice telling me, "You're powerless over these cigarettes. If you act the way you always act, you're going to get what you always got. If you get what you got, you're always going to get what you know, you're going to feel the way you always felt." You know, and I said, "I'm getting on a plane. I won't have a cigarette for many hours." I said, "You know what?" I ripped them up, and I incorporated the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. I got honest with what was making my life unmanageable. I came to believe in a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity, and I made a decision to trust the process and just not pick up that next cigarette. And it's been that long, and I use the steps, you know. I went to the Bahamas after that, you know, then all of a sudden, you know, the fingers start coming apart. I started gaining a little weight, you know, and that's where N.A. boy met N.A. girl, you know. And if you don't think God is good, before you're in a relationship, when you get in your first NA relationship, God is real good, you know? And so at the time, I had a different sponsor, and any of you that know him, he's got a quirky personality. His name is Dutch. And I never forget, man, it was like we met, and he was like, well, Christmas was coming upon us, you know. He said, well, what you going to get her for Christmas, you know? And I said, you can't get her a bag of dope, you know. You have to know Dutch to know it, yeah? So I said, no, I was thinking of getting us a trip to Hawaii. And he said, oh, no, that's a good present, you know. And so we went to Hawaii. You know, what a place to go, you know. We got in an argument, and she left me for the taxi driver. You can laugh, it's funny, really. It's hysterical, really, but at the time it wasn't, though. At the time it wasn't, you know. And it just, you're going to have certain times in your recovery where it's only going to be you, God, and what you learned. And you know, there was so many people that came before me, and when they came and shared their pain and everything and got through something, I didn't know how much that was going to help me until I was in my moment. Because I don't care who you are, I don't care if you can walk on water, the storm is going to come. It's going to smack you upside your head. And that's why we need to have the steps, and we need to have support in our lives of people. And I called my sponsor, I didn't get him. And I called my sponsees, and they got me through it, and I didn't have to use. You know? I said, well, and I started going to AA dances because them NA girls are sick, you know? The grass is greener on the other side. But I did meet probably the most special woman I've ever met in my life there, you know. I met her at the dance. We were together a little over a year. Life is going good. And she comes and tells me I'm going to be a daddy. And I'm like, oh man, does it get any better than this? You know? And I'm high-fiving all my friends. I'm going to be a daddy. I get excited. You know, I'm an excited type of guy. So my highs and lows are extreme, you know? And I was extremely high, you know? And then 10 days later, she came back and said she got rid of the kid on me. And certain things I almost can't explain. And I always try to look for the lesson in every situation. But this is one situation that we had a saying, I don't hear it anymore. I didn't hear it much back in the day either. But they used to say, if your ass falls off, put it in a bag and bring your bag to a meeting. You know? And that's what I did. You know, I brought the bag, I raised my hand, fell into the fetal position. They literally had to carry me out of the meeting. I was a mess, you know? But you know what? I didn't have to use, you know? And I didn't pick up, you know? And I walked through it, you know? And after that, my best friend got with my girlfriend. What are friends for? You know? And then one of the other times, I'm just giving you little key points of my recovery, you know, and things that have happened. But one thing that happened to me, and it was, you never know, this is why I love to make meetings regularly. I still try to make, hey, some days I only make 4 or 5, but I really like to make 7 or 10 meetings still, you know, because you never know when you're going to hear the answer you need to get through the situation or the time you're going to need to apply that maybe 3 or 4 years later. You don't know. And a guy came into the meeting, and I never used to like listening to him, you know. And he came in and he said, isn't it amazing how we can hug the slimiest, grimiest people when they come walking into the rooms, but we can't go home and hug our mothers? And he hit me right between the eyes. you know? And I never forget, I went home and I hugged my mother that night. And hugging my mother that night was like hugging a guy out of prison at his first NA meeting, and he doesn't want to be hugged. I called him, Ronnie, my own damn mother wouldn't hug me, man. And he says, CJ, have you ever hugged your mother before? And I said, no. And he says, how was it like when we hugged you the first time? It was quite awkward. And he says, well, then I'd like you to do this. I'd like you to hug your mother for 90 days. Where we hear that, right? And so I went home, and every day I hugged my mother. And every day, and all of a sudden, that tightness started to get loose. And all of a sudden, after 30 days, my mother became a huggy bear. You know? And I'd like to say that what we learn in here, we hear different things in Narcotics Anonymous, and then we go apply them on the outside, in the real world, and everything. And I'd like to say that due to Narcotics Anonymous, my whole family, every member of my family today hugs, thanks to Narcotics Anonymous. But I was still going out. It was about me, you know. I wanted to go have fun. I wanted to enjoy things, you know. And then I go into a meeting and hear, you know, how someone, you know, their marriage is separating because all they worry about is recovery, you know, and different little things. And all of a sudden, you know, sometimes you're just at that point where you just hear something and it makes you think about in your life how it is. And it was just like, wow, nothing's different in my life, you know, according to my mother. You know, I go out, after the meetings, we go to New York, we go to the midnight meeting, I come home 2, 3, 4 in the morning. What has really changed, you know? So I made a decision in the steps with my sponsor. We made a decision that I was going to spend Sunday nights watching Touched by an Angel with my mother. Well, that's what she liked. And Tuesday we watched the Knicks or the Yankees, whichever was in season, you know. And I would bring home dinner and we'd break bread. And see, it ain't about saying we're sorry in this program. It's about mending together the wrong with right. You know, my mother was in the hospital for 8 days in 1975. Do you think I went to see her once? I'm not proud I didn't go see her once. But you know what? Through Narcotics Anonymous, we're able to make amends. We're able to make right what we wronged, you know? And then after, you know, it was probably about 2 years of spending time with my mother every Sunday and Tuesday. My mother, it was Labor Day weekend, and my mother came down with cancer. And you know, I tell you, I can't thank Narcotics Anonymous enough, you know. And I'm going to share with you my greatest moment in Narcotics Anonymous. I was able to let somebody run my business, and I was able to spend the last 4.5 months by my mother's side. I laid in bed with her. I rubbed her bald head. I was her slave. I never understood what they say, that sometimes the parent becomes the child, but I understood that. I had to give my mother methadone. Not methadone, but morphine. Yeah, I had to give. It was a funny story, man. They come in and they're like, you know, well, we're going to have to teach somebody how to do this. And you know, my brother faints at the sight of blood, you know. And here I am. I was like, oh, well, maybe okay, teach me, I guess. I felt like saying, you want me to teach you? But anyhow, what I'm saying is Narcotics Anonymous taught me how to suit up and show up. Narcotics Anonymous taught me how to be there for another person. And now I was able to practice it on the greatest battlefield of all with my mother. And what I love about Narcotics Anonymous, they knew I had to be there for my mother. So the men I sponsored and friends in the program, they would come and bring a meeting to me so I could stay and be there for my mother. And you know, and this was my greatest moment right here. I'm going to share it with you. I'm laying in bed with my mother, and I'm rubbing her bald head, and her friend Eileen comes walking in. And my mother says, "Hi, Eileen, how are you?" And she says, "Hi, honey, how are you?" My mother was so sweet, they called her honey, you know. And she was. She never said a bad word about anybody. She never swore in all her life, you know. Good mom, good person. So she said, "Hi, honey." And my mother looks up at her and says, "You know, Eileen, remember all those talks about how our sons would never be there for us?" And the lady put her head down in shame. My mother says, "No, no, no, Eileen." And she looked over at me and she says, "Don't worry, your son will be there just like mine's there for me." And it's the times where you feel God, the amends, and my gratitude for Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous helped me to be the son my mother always wanted. Narcotics Anonymous keeps teaching me to be the person that my higher power wants me to be. You know, I keep trying to do step work. I keep trying to unravel the onion. I keep trying to be a better person and spread love. You know, that's all I try to do. You know, but one of the things throughout all this that really excited me was my spirit, I felt, was born to travel. And it's what I wanted most in life. And I guess this is why they asked me to speak on the Worldwide Fellowship. And it didn't start out like, you know, I just wanted to go away to a different country. So I went away to Norway, you know, and I met Monica Haas, and I met Jill Jordan there from Sweden, and Michael Lund, and all these great people there. And, you know, for you women, I'd like to say something to you women. Y'all should be proud, because you don't know how many countries have been started by women. My limited knowledge, I'm going to give you. Norway was started by a woman. Scotland was started by a woman. Slovenia was started by a woman. Croatia was started by a woman. Slovakia was started by a woman. New Zealand was started by a woman. So, I mean, that's my limited amount. I'm probably forgetting one or two, but what I'm saying is we're a fellowship of men and women, you know, and, you know, but where was I, Roseanne? Help me, man, this brain's shot. Norway, thank you. Yay! No. I don't have to tell you I used every day now, do I? But man, I tell you what, when I've gone to some of these countries, I went to Norway, which is like one of the most richest, and I think it was voted the #1 country to live in right now. And then on the flip side, 3 weeks later, I went to Thailand. See, I never thought I could get a passport. For anyone that doesn't think they can get a passport, I'm here to tell you that I had charges that I really didn't do. Really, I didn't. But it was a grand larceny charge that I didn't do, honest. It wasn't me. He stole my, you've heard it? I'm not under, okay. So, and Canada wouldn't let me in anymore, right? I'd gone maybe 20 times or so, and one time I was all nice and proud and cocky. I'm an NA warrior, you know? And they said, oh, what are you doing in Canada? I'm going to a Narcotics Anonymous convention. And they said, oh yeah? Pull over here. No, you're not going. So, I had to drive 9 hours back to Jersey, and so I always thought I never could get a passport. And someone said, CJ, just spend the $59 damn on it, and let them tell you you can't. And all of a sudden, I got this nice shiny passport. So if any of you think you can't, maybe you can. Let them be the judge. And so I went to Thailand, and oh my God, when I went to Thailand, it was in its infant stages of recovery, but man, I tell you, it just, when you go to these different cultures and have these different experiences, it makes you look different in life. And it really changed my perspective on life. And, I was the first member to ever go to Bangladesh, and they met me, and there was like 20 of them that met me at the airport. They live 2 to 4 people in a room, and when I stayed with them, they slept on the floor to give me their bed. They have nothing, but they have it all.
Right.
We have it all. Sometimes I think we have nothing. And I don't know, that's in the total perspective. But, I went to a lot of places, and, I've been up in the Himalayas, in Nepal, the southern Alps of New Zealand, the northern Alps, and, Switzerland, Machu Picchu, Peru. The whole fellowship picked me up. I mean, that's a longer story, but, I always said if something ever happened to me, this is probably my biggest miracle story that I'm going to tell. I'm going to shut it down. But it's nice to know wherever you go, whatever country it is, you're welcome. I just got back from Cartagena, Colombia last week, and they didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Spanish. And every day they came in with a smile, picked me up at the airport, smiling. Can't understand me, I can't understand them. But all we did was smile at each other. And hug. Coffee? More coffee? Yeah. It's just the love, the language of the heart, And, it was priceless, So, where was I out there? All right, we'll get to the mirror. Thank you. So, anyhow, I go to see an old girlfriend and her husband. Through Facebook, we united, and she says, I've heard the miracle, how it's happened. I can't believe it. I have to see it from my own eyes. And she said, I'd really like you to come and spend the weekend with me and my husband. And I said, it would be an honor, So I drove up, spent the weekend with him, and came back home, All of a sudden, a couple months later, I get a phone call. CJ, my husband's daughter just overdosed. She's in the hospital. We were wondering if there was any way that you could come and give her some words of encouragement or give her some hope, And I said it would be an honor. So I drove 4 hours up to North Florida, and little did I know that I thought I was going to go to maybe give words of encouragement to the child. I never saw the child. They rushed me to the hospital. She was going to save my life. And they said, you have a blockage, and we're going to need to operate right now. Your colon's 4 times the normal size. And he said, you don't know how lucky you are. If it would have leaked or burst, you would have died. And I just looked at him and said, no, I know how lucky I am, you know? And I woke up, and they told me I had cancer, and I have a colostomy bag, which I still have. If you see a little bulge, I have a colostomy bag. They always said I was full of shit. Came true. If you can't laugh at life, come on, man. You know? And people say it doesn't bother you. You travel 365 days a year, you know, and it's just like, hey, we get dealt different hands, man. Sometimes, you know, I get a straight flush, and sometimes I get a beat hand or whatever, you know. But whatever I get, man, I play that day. You know, and some days I get a good hand, you know, and other days, but you know what? Even my worst hand today is better than my greatest hand when I used, you know. Right. But so I woke up and I got this, and I'm feeling sorry for myself. You see, getting cancer in my family is like a death sentence, you know. My father died 8 days after he got cancer. My mother died 4.5 months after she got cancer. So me hearing the C word was like death sentence, you know. And all of a sudden, you know, for the first 2 days, I'm feeling boo-hoo, sorry for myself, and blah, blah, blah. And I got this great relationship with my higher power, you know. And all of a sudden, I woke up one day, and he says, God, look at you. You're a disgrace. What are you talking about? You know, I talked to him. But he said, you're a disgrace. Look at you whining like a little baby, you know? And he said, how dare you go out like this? He said, I blessed you with 25 years past your expiration date, and here you are whining like a little, you know? And he said, if you're going out, go out with some dignity, will you? Go out with some, you know, you ain't got to go out like this, come on. And so I started putting my hand over my colon, and I said, God, heal my colon, heal my body, heal my spirit. Help me, please, God. And I always said, if I got sick, I always wanted to get healed in Thailand. And so after that happened, I got on a plane, and I went to Thailand, and I was going to get healed, you know? And I went there, and all of a sudden I had to get an oncologist. And so I asked some people in the program, hey, anybody know an oncologist? You know, I need to find one. And they said, oh, you got to give Jabu a call. And I was like, okay, yeah, give me his number. And so I give him, and so I call him up. This is a miracle story, man, I'm telling you. And so I call him up and say, hello, Jabu. And he says, yeah. And he said, who's this? And I said, my name is CJ. He said, CJ, what's up, man? And I'm like, hey, do I know you? and he says, CJ, man, I'm the black South African guy that when I came into the program last year, you bought me dinner the first 4 nights I was in the program, you know? And I said, oh, man, how the hell you doing, man? You know? And I said, what the fuck they got me calling you for? He says, I'm an oncologist. Yes. And he says, I'm a holistic oncologist now. But what I'm going to do, CJ, I'm going to put you in touch with the #1 cancer doctor in all of Asia. I was like, wow, thank you. And he said, CJ, you need to go to Chula Hospital, and you need to make an appointment for Dr. Varro. Don't see anybody else. You got to see Dr. Varro. So I go there and I make an appointment. They say I got to come back in 90 days. Now, mind you, my mother died 4.5 months, and my father died 8 days, and now they're telling me I got to wait 90 days, you know? But that's how they do it in Thailand, you know? That's how they roll. So I went back after 90 days, And I didn't have everything I needed that they specified because it's a Thai hospital and I didn't understand it all. And they said, well, now you got to come back in another 90 days and have all the proper stuff then. And I was like, oh, I was just like bummed, you know? And my buddy says, come on, CJ, a new meeting started last week. Here it is now. A new NA meeting started last week, right? So we go to the meetings, and where is it at? It's at this place called B&H Hospital. And I walked in there, and I said, well, let me see if I can get the test done here, so maybe I could speed up the process. And so they said, yes, you can get it done here, and blah, blah, blah. So I go into the meeting, and I'm talking with this guy. I'm saying, I just can't believe it, man. They're making me wait another 90 days. And he said, he said, CJ, if you're open, a girl in this hospital has touched many people and helped them with their cancers. And if you're open to it, she'd love to help you. And so I took her name down, and I went to see her the next day. And I went to see her, and she says, can you come in on Sunday? And I said, sure. She said, I want you to come in on Sunday, and I want you to see Dr. Verreau. Dr. Verreau's the doctor I've been trying to see over there for 90 days. If Narcotics Anonymous didn't open a meeting the day before, I don't know if you believe in miracles, but I believe how can you not want to give back to the fellowship that has blessed your life, given you life countless times over and over? And the only way you keep this gift is by giving it away. It's the opposite of the street. I'm just so blessed to be a member of Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous has blessed me with a relationship with my higher power. It's blessed me with a relationship with countless people, and it's blessed me with a relationship with me. And I cherish all of those, and I cherish every one of you. I love you. Got nothing but love for you. Thank you.